Hi, I'm Rhiannon. I am 21, nearly 22 years old. I am a blogger, a very part-time public speaker, and massive AFL fanatic, Richmond fan in the house. And I hail from the sunny state of Queensland.
Which is quickly, just before we find out your disability.
Mhm.
Interesting that you're an AFL fan for somebody in Queensland. As a person who's lived in Sunshine Coast, Townsville, Cairns for a period of time, you can hardly find AFL on a screen, let alone find a fanatic.
AFL's Australian rules football if you're listening overseas as
That's
well.
true. It's a
Yes.
huge rugby league state. So how did you become a fan of AFL up there?
My dad was born and bred in Kyabram in Victoria.
That
So
explains
he
it.
moved up in his early teens and yeah.
You need
Woody
cable
followed with
television
him.
in your house to be able to watch Fox Sports to enjoy AFL up there. None on free to air.
Are you? Let's just get our Richmond bragging out of the way as well. So, quick,
Yes.
you've got 10 seconds. Go.
Dusty is legend.
Okay, thank
Dustin
you.
Martin,
All right, now,
probably the best AFL player.
Yeah, very good. And Rhiannon, what's your disability?
So my disability is Ullrich Muscular Dystrophy.
Okay, talk us through what that is.
So muscular dystrophy, it's a very blanket term. There's about 30 different strands of muscular dystrophy. So basically what it is in a nutshell, it's a degenerative muscle wasting condition. So you get weaker as you get older. It really affects the way you move. For some people, it affects respiratory, heart function, talking, swallowing, and the biggest one is you lose the ability to cough. So given the current climate...
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's it going with the current climate? COVID, obviously, we're talking about here.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting this time last year. We turned into a bit of a freak show at home. We were cleaning door handles every couple of hours. Anyone who came home from work were ushered into the laundry and had to strip off, take clothes off, go for a shower, hand sanitize. We still have a bottle of hand sanitizer, like the big bottles of hand sanitizer, still at the front door. So anyone who enters, hand sanitize. Which
we spoke to Carly Finlay very early on in the pandemic, just before we actually went into a very hard Melbourne lockdown. We spoke to her about how it was affecting people with disability more because obviously, you know, I was still able to go outside for an hour physical of exercise, but you couldn't risk it if you have disabilities that made your immune system lower.
Immunocompromised.
Exactly right. So, yeah, I mean, would have been an incredibly tough time for you, especially with that being part of your disability.
So Rhiannon, I have a good mate called Patrick Jackson. I grew up with him. He's a legend. Hopefully he's listening, but he has muscular dystrophy, and I'm not sure which strand, but it looks a bit different to yours. You seem to be able to get around a little bit more, but to the point where his in terms of his respiratory system, whenever he got a cold or flu, he'd go on life support in hospital, and he's been doing that ever since he was kind of 16, and that's just the normal flu, let alone, you know, coronavirus. So how were you when you started reading the news, you know, last March, a year ago, about this, you know, respiratory virus that was taking over the world? What went through your head?
My first thoughts when it first started crossing the news, I was like, oh, what's the chances it will turn up here? And I was like, well, where I live, not many tourists come to my place of the world, unless we're talking spring and then it's game on. But definitely towards March, when cases, you could watch it start to climb up the country a little bit more. And as I was getting closer to Brisbane, and once the first few cases hit Brisbane, that's when I started to panic a little bit. And I ended up calling work, I believe about 1 to 2 weeks before March. And I said, look, I'm not coming in. It's just too risky, because I was in admin at the time. So I was greeting people and everyone was pretty close to me. So I called work and I said, I can't do it. I'm going to have to stay home. And then the following week, they then did the ring round saying to people, we're closing our doors. And yeah, then it started to get scary. Yeah. Very quickly.
Well, thankfully, our country is on
can I
the
just
right
ask
side
that?
of it.
Imagine if you lived in England or the US.
Oh.
You know what I mean? It would be so different.
Or even Melbourne, you know.
Even Melbourne at point for art, you know, that's where Angus and I are
780
based.
cases a day at one point.
You know, for people with disability who are immunocompromised over there, over other parts of the world, it's pretty tough at the moment. Now, you said you have Ullrich muscular dystrophy, is that right? Ullrich?
Yeah, Ullrich, yeah.
Ullrich what does that mean? What does Ullrich in particular mean for you in terms of your strand of muscular dystrophy?
So it is a collagen 6 deficiency. So whenever someone Googles muscular dystrophy, the first strain that will come up is Duchenne.
Yep.
So Duchenne, it affects dystrophin levels, which helps, I'm assuming, I'm not a medical expert in no means, but that the best way I can describe it is when you use your muscles, they break down. It's almost like a nail file. Like your muscles start breaking down, which is natural.
That's all of us. So when we go to the gym or anyone, their muscles break down and they reform bigger. That's why you go to the gym.
So in most instances, you go to the gym, you work out, and your muscles will build back stronger, which is excellent if you're a bodybuilder. But with muscular dystrophy, and especially for people with Duchenne, you use your muscles and they don't grow back. So they continuously waste away. And then there are kids in wheelchairs permanently from the age of 7, 8, depending on the luck of the draw.
That's the best description I've ever heard.
I was going to say, I've never had someone break it down so simple for me.
That is the one. That I'm stealing that.
That's really great.
That's a great way. So
is there, can I ask a quick question? And you obviously you're not necessarily, we're not talking to a professor of medicine or whatever. So just with your knowledge of, I was going to say motor neuron disease, but muscular dystrophy.
Different.
So with your knowledge of it, could you get somebody who was diagnosed with it at a very young age and sort of bubble them to protect their muscles for the longest amount of time to sort of prolong life?
All I know from experience, I've got a friend with Duchenne, and I hope he doesn't mind me talking about it, but his parents assumed, okay, let's get you up and moving. Let's start getting you moving, which was not helpful. So doctors, and especially for me, they really pushed being in a wheelchair very early on. From when I was about 4, I got my first mobility scooter at the age of 4, which being a 4-year-old having a little mobility scooter was always fun. Drag race everyone at school.
Running people over, whether you don't like.
Literally, that honestly, Dylan, that happened.
I like it.
Literally.
Good excuse.
But yeah, no, for me, it's different. My condition, I can still walk, touch wood, which I'm very, very blessed and grateful to still be able to have that ability. And I can only walk, I'd say the most I've been able to do in one hit is about 2 kilometers.
Oh, that's a bit.
It's a bit, but I've gone one better and have signed up for a fundraiser to do 5K. So help me.
With crutches or unassisted?
Unassisted.
You got to walk 5K unassisted, even though you've only ever walked 2K.
That's the plan.
That's pretty loose. I mean, you're already 2Ks ahead of me as well. So
yeah.
Well, good luck. Make sure you give us the
Thank you.
details of the fundraiser so we can share them on our socials.
Most certainly.
But you were the first child of your parents.
Yes.
Do you know if after having a child with disability, your parents contemplated whether they should have more kids?
That's scary you ask that. I was only just talking to my mother about that this morning.
Wow.
Because I was looking through old medical records. I told her to pull out a big file of medical records. And in it, they said, they were contemplating having further children. And I said to my mother, I'm like, was that always on the cards? And she said, we were having 2 kids, regardless disability, that was always going to happen. So very fortunate that my brother came along 3 years after me.
Nice.
So your brother has a disability or not?
No,
Okay.
he's fit and healthy. Yeah.
So do we know if it's genetics, muscular dystrophy, or how does it come about?
So it's usually genetics. It's more common, I believe, if you carry it yourself and then have children. The way the cookie crumbled for me is no one in my family has this condition. Yeah. They did genetic testing, they traced it back. No one in my family is disabled. I'm the unlucky sod that caught the rotten egg, so to speak.
Or lucky potentially. Mm.
Yes.
Is that truly how you feel?
Do you feel unlucky or lucky?
If you asked me that question about 10 years ago, I would have said unlucky.
Why? Well, take us back before you answer it now then. What was going on 10 years ago?
10 years ago, my anxiety was shot. Like usually when you grow up, when you're 4, 5, 6, you don't recognize anything's for a lack of a better word, different with yourself. You go through life and you go, oh yeah, I'm playing in the playground, whatever. But once you hit, for me, grade 3 was the cinger. I was 7, trying to fit in, but my body, I was starting to notice that I wasn't as strong anymore as what I used to be. I couldn't sit on the floor anymore and get up by myself. So I had to start sitting on a chair in class. And I was the only one in my grade that was doing that at the time. So when that started to roll over, and then I started to notice more of the name calling and the stares and the laughs out in the playground, that really started to rock my confidence. And that was the same year I lost my grandfather to liver cancer the day after my 8th birthday, which was difficult enough. But as you kept going through the year levels and the bullying kept getting worse and evolving, so did your body. Like, I went from walking around in the playground pretty easy to needing a mobility scooter to get around the playground. And then that resulted to just sitting and watching everyone play and just sort of twiddling my thumbs. So it really rocked that confidence, which then I reckon it then turned into me sort of needing a lot more confidence and positive words from the outside world, which then led to my friends at the time saying, oh, you're too needy. You need too much. You need too much help. You need too much encouragement. So, yeah, that really went up through to year 12 for me. And it's only been, I'd say 10 years. I'd probably say since I've been out of high school that I've really started to value and love what my condition has enabled me to do. Like, I wouldn't be here without it. I'm grateful.
And by here, you mean the ListenABLE podcast.
Yeah, you mean this award-winning
yeah.
podcast.
No awards yet.
No, we give ourselves awards. Did you feel like a burden back then on your friends?
Yes.
How'd that make you
Definitely.
feel?
It didn't make me feel good. I felt like a burden to my family, to my friends, that I needed so much help, and not being able to participate in sports and things that my brother was. Yeah, I mean, we still had some epic wrestling sessions, no doubt about it, and swimming races and things. And he treated me like one of his other friends and everything. So he was brilliant in that regard. And my family definitely had the no bubble wrap approach. They were literally like, hey, if you want to go and do donuts on your three-wheeler scooter and face plant in the concrete, go right ahead. Like, you'll only learn. But yeah, at the time, definitely.
So let's say you said 10 years, so now you're 22, so probably the last 4 years of sort of finding yourself. Can I ask you a question, probably for both of you? Do you feel that as somebody who's disabled, that your friends, is there a moment when you're growing up making friends that you think, why are they being friends with me? Because there's a certain changes or differences that they will have to go through that they don't have to if they weren't friends with you, if that makes sense. I can't understand that. I'm trying to formulate a question that doesn't relate to my life, if that makes sense. But do you feel within yourself, why would you want to be friends with me? If that makes sense? Or no?
I don't think that question's ever crossed my mind, actually. But that's a good question.
That's why he's on the big bucks here at ListenABLE. The average bucks.
Yeah.
They're not many bucks.
I think that was the general question of why. And I think everyone who's disabled at some point in time has that question running through their head. But more so about, why am I like this? Why did this happen? But no, I don't think I ever had that thought cross my mind, actually.
Because I just wonder whether you think, oh, it's easy to be friends with Renee instead of Rhiannon, because Renee and I can run to the movies and go to a movie marathon, but I have to wait another hour of preparation to go and do it with Rhiannon, if that makes sense. I'm just saying that hopefully that doesn't happen, but in your own mind, do you play tricks on yourself?
Angus says that to our boss when he's trying to get a new co-host. He's like, I've got to always help Dylan. It's such a...
I do have to bring the coffees into the radio show on a morning.
Yeah, I buy them, but I can't carry them.
There's a lot of burdens that Dylan has to do. Have to go through pedestrian crossings. We can't jaywalk.
Yeah, we can't jaywalk. Oh, you tried to jaywalk today. I was like, bro, we've got to go around here. There's steps. He's like, oh, damn. I will say this to answer your question. You build up in your own mind that you think you are more of a burden than you actually are, which is what I found out. So when I used to shy away from my disability and be embarrassed about it is because I thought I was being more of a burden than I probably was being. But in saying that, Gus, I've been to probably when I was 18, 19, there was a couple of clubs, we've told this story on this ListenABLE, but when I go to a nightclub or somewhere and, there's 10 of us and we don't get in they all get in, but I get told, no, you're not coming in, you're in a wheelchair, and they all leave because of me, I feel bad. I still feel bad, right? That is when I feel like a burden. And I do. And they go, mate, stuff this joint. We don't want to be there anyway. But as much as they say that, I still feel like I've let them down because of who I am. And that'll probably never go away, but you just get better at, and Rhiannon, you might agree, I'm 30, you're 22, so you'll get even better at it than you are now. Because when I was 22, I probably still thought about this stuff a bit more, but it's just how it is. Some things you can control and some things that you can't.
Definitely. And I'm with you on the clubbing thing. I've only just gone out doing a pub crawl in the last 6 months. First time ever that I've managed to do it. It was with a bunch of work colleagues, and it was actually after our work Christmas party. And they're like, oh, come, bar hopping with us. I'm like, oh, sweet, cool. Where I live, the main drag of town, there's not a lot of restaurants and bars that are actually accessible. There are steps to get in there, which
I thought Toowoomba would be all flat pubs. There you go. I don't know. I just thought it would be like old school, like country town flat pub vibe. There's not many normally 2-story, 3-story joints in. I'm just asking. That's my assumption.
No, there's still most of them. They've got 2 stories.
Well, let me cross Toowoomba off my go-to list. Ready? Oop, done. There you go.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice place. But they originally like, okay, well, let's go to this bar. And we rocked up and my colleague's like, let me go test it out first. He walked in, took 2 seconds, walked out and he goes, nah, okay, guys, next one. We literally went to all of them. And then there was one more to test off and he came back out and he goes, there are 2 steps. How are we going to do this? I want you to get in here. So they literally, I was with my mobility scooter at the time. And he's like, right, so-and-so, get over here. We're going to lift it. So they got me out of the mobility scooter and lifted my scooter up 2 stairs and then came and got me and they're like, right, we're going to carry you up this thing.
Good.
So they literally came and carried me through the club.
And that's why, and credit to you, Angus, like we go out together, mate, and if there's stairs, I'm lucky and sounds like you are too, Rhiannon, to have some really beautiful friends who go, you're coming in, I'm going to help you. You know what I mean?
Well, we once went into a pub, Dylan and I, in summer last year, and we walked up there and the bouncer said, look, can't let you guys in. And I'm like, here we go, ableism. This just because this guy's in a wheelchair. He went, no, you're in thongs. I went, bloody hell.
Yeah, that's it.
Inappropriate footwear, I get it.
Oh, he's like, no, he's good. You're not good.
Dylan can come in.
He's like, no, you, mate.
You have to go home and get changed. I was like, oh, yeah, fair enough.
That's good gear.
Absolutely. So we should, because you said you were about to walk 5 kilometres, I didn't know that you're every day.
Yeah, you just said you're in an electric wheelchair. What's going on?
So I was like, what? I was like, 2 stairs. You can't get up, or struggle.
But you're going to walk 5K.
You're going to walk 5K.
What are you serious?
What's happening here?
What's going, are you making this up? Talk us through so you're in an electric wheelchair every day or a scooter?
I'm in a mobility scooter.
Okay, yeah.
So different from an electric wheelchair.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're the ones like...
3 wheels.
Yeah, but not like an old school granny scooter. There's these really cool little compact ones these days. Is that what you're rolling around in? Yeah.
Yeah. So it literally pulls apart and you can fit it in the boot. Like we have a Corolla.
They're awesome.
And it fits in the boot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so we should have set that up because when you're like, this isn't accessible. It's got 2 stairs. I'm like, you're walking 5Ks. How can you not? But 2 stairs is too much.
They can't go vertical. It's easier to go straight, not up.
That makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So
I think it's a gravity thing.
It is, yeah.
Gravity is discriminating
Correct,
against us.
Yeah. Physics. It was all about physics. So their scooters are cool these days. How quick can the scooter get up to?
Oh, God. I like to think it's pretty quick, but I had a bloke I went to school with. He was in a manual chair and we did a drag race one day and he still flogged me by a mile.
They'd have to put speed limiters on it.
No, hang on.
Can you go to a mechanic and
No,
take the speed limiter off?
There's black. You can.
can?
Yeah, bro.
Really?
They can go. Yeah, they
Hey.
can go up to 30 k's an hour. They're quick.
Yeah, because
Dude.
there are things within
You
scooters.
can chip them like a PlayStation. You just chip a PlayStation.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
I learned
something
I
today.
don't condone that
Go see your car
to the
service.
government who's listening to this, but go chip your schooner.
Rhiannon, for you, you wrote to us, you nominated yourself, and thank you so much. ListenABLE podcast at outlook.com if you want to do the same. You said, the doctors at the time of my diagnosis pretty much told my parents to go home and love me because the prognosis was not good. Do your parents speak about that moment and what it was like walking into the front door of their home for the first time after the prognosis? Have you ever asked them about it?
Yeah, I mean, we're super open and honest, and they share stories with me all the time. One of the stories was how it came to happen. I was the first child, so my mum didn't realize the early signs. Like I wasn't a very active baby in the womb. I didn't kick around much, and she just thought that was normal. And then when I was born, I was floppy, and I believe they originally tested me for Down syndrome. I'm not entirely sure why.
But they knew
yeah,
from
that
the outset
happened.
that there was a difference.
There was a difference, yeah. And then it wasn't until I was about 2 and I was at my grandparents' place, and my grandparents were watching me walk, and I was sort of waddling. I like to say to people I waddle like a penguin.
Yeah.
My walk. And my grandparents were like, oh, this isn't normal. Something's off here. You might want to go and get it checked.
Kind of looks like you've
And
had a couple of rosés when people, like a bit,
Yeah.
like you've had a couple of beers, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like M. Carey, a previous guest, described herself as constantly looking drunk on the street.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then one thing led to another. We were directed to an incredible doctor in Brisbane. And the day that they got my test results, I had to go and do a skin biopsy and a muscle biopsy, which for a 3-year-old is
Scary.
traumatic.
Yeah.
But Mum said to me she remembers the day vividly well because she was sitting next to my cot at home that day thinking something's going to change today. The world we know it is going to change by the time we get home. And she said they were in the waiting room to get the results. The doctor came out to get them. And she said the look in his face, she said, I will never forget that. She said, I could tell something was not right. And then that's when they sat them down, told them it's muscular dystrophy. And Mum didn't know what it was. And she just like, rightio, cool. Is there medication that she can take? Is there an operation? Like, what's the deal? And he said, nothing. And at that point, that was early 2000s. Like we're talking 2002-ish. So most research on muscular dystrophy was of Duchenne, which is a more severe type of muscular dystrophy. Like your prognosis for Duchenne, you're lucky to see your 20s. But now, day and age, medicine's evolved and people are getting a bit longer. So yeah, that's when the doctor's like, look, just enjoy your time.
Is the reason that it's a low life expectancy is because of the muscle breakdown, hence the lack of breathing and stuff? Like what is that? Talk us through why it is.
So it's really much exactly that. Your muscles break down, which you use muscles to breathe, your lungs, everything there
Your
is
heart's a muscle?
helping you.
Even like keeping your spine
Heart's muscle.
straight so you don't crush organs and that as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I got scoliosis, which is pretty common
Yeah.
with people with MD. But yeah, so your heart, your breathing, your ability to cough. So if you get one bout of pneumonia and you can't cough to clear all the gunk up, it's really, really tricky. So I think that's where the life expectancy comes from, when you can't do all those things.
It is an uncomfortable conversation because I still remember chatting to Emma Money. She has cystic fibrosis.
Yep.
And she got given an age, a timeline of her life, essentially. Was that number given to you, and how do you feel about that?
It wasn't necessarily directly given to me. I found it. I shouldn't have, but I was flicking through my parents' email one day, and I found out an email that they were received from Starlight, and they were having a conversation with Starlight. and my
You should
mother
mention
had
just
replied.
quickly, that's a children's foundation. They
Star
do
Star
incredible
Foundation.
work.
It's not too dissimilar to Make-A-Wish, where they give young kids with illness or disability what they need. I had to start that wish as well. Rhiannon, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, in that email that my mother had sent to them, she said that the prognosis was originally around 18, 19 years of age. And when I'd found that email, I was 12 or 13.
Wow. I was going to say amazing stalking of the email.
I know. I still feel guilty about that.
No, it's good skills to have in later life.
But so how do you feel as a 12-year-old seeing a number on the screen that tells you you've got 6 years to live?
It was scary. It was really, really, really scary. And I was sitting there going, well, you're telling me I'm just going to graduate high school and I'm not going to be able to live it up.
Mm.
What
So
do you-
school is an option for me, the thing you look forward to.
Do you go to school the next day and go, I'm going to try, or do you just go stuff it? Like what?
I think I threw myself into my schoolwork. I took pride in my schoolwork because that was the one thing I was good at, or thought I was good at, until I hit year 12. But yeah, I was like, this is something I know I can do well. Sport, I can't do. This I can, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And so, God forbid anything's to happen, I can go, do you know what? I was able to take pride in this.
Is there, so 18, right, was the number that you saw?
18, 19, yeah.
What happened on that 18th birthday? Is it kind of like, do you remember Y2K, the year 2000, and everyone at New Year's was like, happy
Yeah, we're going to do it's all going to end.
Year.
You weren't born. You were 2. You would have been 1 or 2 there.
1 or 2, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So
that was the thing. The world was meant to end at the year 2000, Y2K.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Was it the same for you around that 18th, 19th birthday? Were you there like...
Great analogy, by the way.
Should I, is it worth opening presents? Don't buy me presents. What's your attitude heading towards that figure?
I could only go by how I was feeling internally, and going, do you know, I actually still feel pretty good. I'm still walking. The doctors have told me from grade 7, you're not going to walk. You're not going to walk. 16, you'll be in your chair, in a wheelchair for formal. I was dancing in slight heels for my formal. So I was like, you know, I actually still feel pretty good with this. So I'm going to give it a whirl and see how we go. So when it got to my 18th birthday, I was like, you know, I think I'm good here. And I was like, do you know, enjoy it.
Well, that's a great attitude to have. And so do you look forward into the future with what sort of outlook?
I'm definitely a lot more optimistic these days. I'm just like, do you know what? Take it as it comes. And it's taken me a long time to get to that point where I'm like, I am happy and content with myself and my life and what I've been able to go through and accomplish in 22 years. I'm ecstatic and blown away with. So I've pretty much had the cake and icing and cherry on top. So I'm looking at the future going, whatever comes is whatever comes, and I'm just going to take it as it gets here.
What is that future goals? Is that career goals? Is that family goals? Like dating? Like where does your mind go when you think about it?
I think a bit of everything. I would love to one day be married and have children of my own, which is a whole other beast entirely.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about what the body would be pregnant with your condition.
Let's
for sure.
play in that space now because I won't name them, but I've got a friend who has muscular dystrophy as well. She was in high school. We didn't even know she had a disability and started showing signs of it about 15 or 16, and she just had a kid. But she used a surrogate in America which is a process, and we will let's even try and get her on ListenABLE because it's so interesting the way to go about it, the legals and it's just especially in Australia, hard thing to do in Australia. So they did it overseas, but she's a mum now. She's got a beautiful child and she's loving it and things like that. And you can see the smile on your face, Rhiannon, which I love seeing because I think for some people with some certain disabilities, the doctors just count that stuff out. And you're like, no, I want to do that. How do you see it working for yourself?
I actually had an appointment with I think it was a geneticist in year 12, and it was 8:30 of a morning. It was a school morning, so I had to go back to school straight afterwards. And they sat me down and they looked through my medical records and they said, if you decide to conceive yourself, it's going to be a 1 in 2 that you're going to have a kid with muscular dystrophy. And also we should inform you that there may be a chance you won't be able to carry the child yourself because your center of gravity is going to change too much and you're already toe walking as it is. So you're going to fall over a lot more, which isn't going to be safe. So you're going to be put on bed rest.
Yeah.
And even that for a 16-year-old to hear, that was.
But even to the point where this particular couple, they test the sperm and the eggs and they can tell if it's going to be a definite yes or not, whether they can use the eggs in a surrogate.
Really?
Yeah, because if it's your genetics, they do the test and they go, unfortunately, the way you guys match up, it's a definite yes or no. So you can test before and then whether they use the surrogate eggs or the actual person with the disabilities eggs.
But then are you given the, ethical, moral decision to then go forward with that? Or do the doctors go, we know this child's going to have...
Ethical choice. Yeah,
ethical choice, yeah.
Of course. Yeah,
but no, the morality comes into it as well. Maybe.
No, you can still... Yeah, but like, who's a doctor to say you can't have a disabled kid? Like,
but that's what I'm saying. Are there doctors who say that you can't have a disabled kid?
You can still use you have the choice whether to use the eggs that are going to make a disabled baby or not. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure.
I'm just saying, I know there are tests for Down syndrome and at certain points, and some people can terminate the pregnancy
but that's
at that
not
point.
Up to doctors, up to the
I know,
couple,
but I'm saying if you are going pre-pregnancy into that moment.
That's so true.
Does that choice exist? Do the doctors take that away from you? Because, an able-bodied doctor goes, my opinion is you're not going to have the quality of life of a normal child, and I don't know. Does that?
What would you say? What would you say if a doctor said that to you, Rhiannon? If you wanted to have your child and there was a potential of having the same as yours, same disability?
I think I'd say simply to them that I understand and thank you for telling me about the risks. This is a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
And I would love that child no matter what. Yeah, it would be difficult to bring a child into the world knowing the difficulties that they're going to face and going, I've lived through that, but at least I can help you through it because I know what to expect.
What a teacher, Yeah. And I still think about Steph Agnew. At the very end of her episode, she's blind and she talks about her life being amazing. She loves her life. And who's to say that her life isn't as great as somebody else's? And I was like, oh my God, it was such a powerful moment.
Yeah.
Impactful sentence from me.
The example that I use is when my parents say that Dylan plays wheelchair tennis, the first thing they say is, oh, I'm so sorry. What happened? Not like, that's awesome. And it's just that's why it's so important to normalize disability, especially in the medical industry, doctors, because they're actually some of the worst people. It's not their fault. They don't do any normalization training at uni about disability. They just see it from the medical disability model, not the social model of disability. So they look at our lives and go, bad life. Not, oh, they're a great person. They've got a job. They've got a partner. It's like bad life, disability, no good. So great question, Gus. I like that. We should find that out.
My clipboard might be blank, but yours has a list of things. And for doctors, that's just problems, surgeries, etc. So I guess.
And Gus, you just had a child, and you said something really beautiful to me before she was born.
Yes, I think I said on this podcast. I said that I wasn't looking for the prognosis of a healthy baby. I wouldn't be using the terminology of I have a healthy baby because therefore I have the stigma that disability isn't okay. And I think my perception has changed in the last year of doing this podcast with Dylan because I keep hearing stories of great mothers, fathers, children of people with disabilities that they've got amazing lives, living huge lives. But up until that point, the idea of,
I need a healthy baby. Oh, I'm no good.
How many Instagram captions do you see?
She's healthy.
The first photo, healthy baby. 8'6", 47 centimeters, mum and bub are healthy.
Yeah, and when they're a bit not healthy, like have a disability, they don't post, and it's like this big bad thing that's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, can I also say something interesting? Sorry, Rhiannon, to get away from your story. I actually had somebody contact me, and they said, "Was everything okay with my baby?" And I was like, "Oh, why is that?" It's like, "Oh, you're not posting her on your Instagram as much as I would have expected. Is everything okay with her?" And I was like, "Oh, you think that?"
Yeah,
even, Indy is in health of, no disabilities, able-bodied so far.
Healthy baby.
In health, healthy baby, but I don't want to say healthy baby.
No, I'm just like, I agree. I agree.
But,
That's so true.
She doesn't have any disabilities that are shown at this point or anything like that. But someone was like, "Oh, we thought something might be wrong." And I was like, "What's wrong?"
Yeah, see, there you go.
I didn't know this person, so I pushed it. I was like, "And what's wrong in your idea?" And they were like, "Oh, nothing." And backed off. But yeah.
Don't tell your mate Dylan I said wrong. I'm sorry.
yeah.
So Rhiannon, what about if you don't mind us going into it? Of course, anything that makes you uncomfortable, let us know. But dating, how have you gone on the dating front?
What dating?
Yeah.
I had one boyfriend when I was in year 11, and that we'd known each other from when we were 5 years old. We went through primary school, and then he left halfway through primary school, and we reconnected when we were in year 10, year 11.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked me out, and at the time I was like, oh my God, like, this is excellent. He's actually seeing me for me, and not, he doesn't see the scooter, and he doesn't see the disability. Like, he sees me and my quirky, weird movie quoting personality. And but then that lasted 4 weeks, and then he broke up with me via text.
Oh.
So
that's it. So you've no dating since then?
No dating since then.
Oh,
No.
So now, are you open to the
is that from you?
the idea of dating? Are you out on apps? You haven't closed yourself up to the idea of it?
My work colleagues have been very open about that. I'm one of 2 in my office that are single, and because the rest of them are married or engaged, and they said to me, like, you need to get Tinder. Like, get Tinder, get Bumble, like, give us your phone and we will set it up for you. We'll monitor it for you. And I said to him, like, no. I'm like, I don't trust you guys enough with that.
So what's if you want to get into the dating world though, like are you open to the idea? Because you got to, find a way to go about it.
Definitely. I'm definitely open to it. 110%, 110%. So I have been looking at a few dating sites recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see.
There's plenty of fish out there.
Yeah.
What about leaving the town? I mean, I grew up in a small town. It's a very community focused. Everybody in the town knows everybody and their business. And also, especially with, Toowoomba is essentially a country town. People seem to lock themselves into relationships very early on, is sort of my experience of growing up, a little bit out bush from the city. So has your mind traveled to the idea of moving out of your comfort zone or your hometown of Toowoomba to try and find, a different life and maybe a partner in a different town? Because there's probably not a lot of people that are single in Toowoomba, I would imagine, in your age bracket.
Yeah, it's definitely, they always say Toowoomba is like the retirement hub. Like, there's a lot of retirees here.
Okay.
Which makes for great conversation. They've got great stories.
Hey, 68-year-old Dennis might be a great guy. You don't know. Open yourself up. Just increase that age range to 40 years.
But no, definitely, I've considered a coastal change.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Okay, nice. What about not only have you got muscular dystrophy, along with your disability has come medical complications and challenges. Your 16th birthday looked a little bit different.
Yes, it did. So in the lead up to my 16th birthday, for a good 12 to 18 months, I was having these really intense pain in like the mid-abdominal, like lower rib area. And I originally thought, it's pocket of air. My brother gets heartburn. Maybe it's just that. And then I started having these attacks at school, and it was shocking. Like, it was like a 10 out of 10, give me morphine. Wow. Like, the pain, it's bad. And then when the pain wraps around your lower back, you feel like you're being like constricted by a python. Like,
I agree.
Insane. And then went to the doctor, and they're like, yeah, you got gallstones. And if you flush them out, they're just going to keep coming back. So you're going to have to remove your gallbladder. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool, okay. And they said, you're doing well with the pain, because they actually said that gallbladder attacks, the pain of that is equal to child labor.
Really?
Yeah, like the severe attacks, yeah. They said the pain is like childbirth. I'm like,
they also say that about barley belly as well. And I've had that. So I keep telling my partner who is pregnant and going through labour, I've had the same pains. I've drank the water in barley.
He put it on social media as well. How do you reckon the response was from women going, you dickhead?
Joking, obviously.
Hey, now, what about career-wise? We talked about, dating.
I haven't finished the bladder story yet.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
That was me interrupting.
So they then said you're going to have surgery to remove it. And the original date was slated a good week or 2 before my 16th birthday. And then they called me up about another week or 2 before the actual surgery date. I'm like, the anaesthetist that we booked originally is on holidays. So we're going to have to move it to the 29th of July. And I got off the phone. I'm like, you're joking. You were kidding me. Well, happy 16th to me.
Sweet
So I was laying,
Yeah, exactly.
literally, I was laying in the hospital bed. Everyone around me was eating cake and I couldn't have anything because I was on a low fat diet
Fasting.
for my recovery.
Oh, how bad's that?
No.
And it was chocolate cake too. I'm like, can you guys like
Rub it
exit
in.
the building, please? or mash it up and put it through my IV.
Have you seen what kind of that was one was that related to your disability?
No, that one
Oh.
wasn't. They put it down to my excessive consumption of mayonnaise.
Hey, don't tell me that because I love mayonnaise. I ask Angus. I eat
still do.
mayonnaise or ranch on anything. I love that stuff.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, too much mayo growing up.
But have you been told about what to expect from a physical aspect and something, degenerative breakdowns of your body? Do you know what will happen first? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they haven't sort of told me what to expect, just that I'll get weaker. And with my type of MD, I have contractures. So my joints in my elbows, in my hips, and my Achilles are tight and shrunk. So I can't stretch my arm out flat. So it's like go bend your elbow to about 90 degrees and then straighten it by a good, say, 2 centimeters, not even that. And my arms are permanently fused in that spot. Like I can't strengthen my arms.
Yeah.
Could you hold it up?
like
Could you? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So for people who will see this on the socials now or our YouTube, so you can't go any more straight than that.
No, that's it.
So it's like at a 90-degree angle. Yeah.
So not to obviously push the issue, but if someone used force, or is it just like it's
The arms
locked
break
all
her
there?
arm.
Deep tissue massage and trigger pointing, which anyone who's had trigger pointing, no, it kills.
Yeah.
But they can sort of straighten it out a little bit, not to completely straight,
Right.
but then you give it 5 minutes and then it will be back. They've said about Botox injections. I've done a bit of research about Botox injections.
Dylan's had them.
But
Yeah, I've had them.
that's still not
In my forehead.
with MD. It's still a bit. They're not sure if it will be beneficial just for the surrounding muscles.
What about then? Do you have enough strength to transfer and dress yourself and all that kind of stuff still?
Yeah. So I can dress myself. I can transfer in and out of cars. Okay. Do not get me to wear a pencil skirt because in getting up into a SUV that I did last August because I fell out of the SUV and hit my head on the concrete and spent 3 weeks off work.
Not good.
Okay.
Not good.
No pencil skirts.
No, not safe to say I've retired pencil skirts.
Yeah.
Because it just buckled my knee and my knees buckle all the time, which makes me have dates with the floor. You talk about dating. I do date it. My partner's the floor. But yeah, so in terms of daily living, I'd say out of 100%, I'd probably say I'm about 80 to 90% independent.
Good.
With my day-to-day being.
And you are studying law as well.
Yes, I am.
Do you want to, I don't know if you're into this, but you are a great advocate just by the way you speak. Do you want to play in the social justice space around disability and law, or do you want to go elsewhere? What's the plan?
I originally thought law was it, and helping people with disabilities and things like that. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, I actually love helping people in a life sense, in like a holistic sense, and helping them because when you're disabled, you go through that period of shock and the why and the anger and the frustration. And I would love to be able to help people through that and to be content and at peace with their situation. And it may not be disability, it may be cancer. The works, as I've had firsthand experience with cancer through family. So, and to be able to help people through that process and to also get their confidence back and to be able to love themselves and love themselves completely, because I so believe in the motto, you can't love anyone else until you love yourself.
Is this like mentoring, life coach vibe? Is that what you think?
Yeah, life coach vibe, yeah.
Oh, cool. What made you get a reason for that? Like, did you see someone that was similar to you with a disability that gave you that, confidence to do that? Or do you think it's like an innate thing that you've learned?
Ooh, I think it's a bit of both. I stumbled across Inky Johnson last year. For those who don't know who Inky Johnson is, he was 8 games shy of being drafted into the NFL. He was up and coming major. And then he had an accident during a game. He was in a tackled wrong, and he's paralyzed down one arm. And his speeches are unreal. And he helped me last year massively with his speeches. So he would definitely be up there. And I mean, Dylan, yourself, massive.
Wasn't fishing for that, but that's very lovely. Thank you.
Oh, really? Because he's got his rod behind him.
I really was not fishing
Is
for
there
that.
any tennis players that seem to inspire you at all?
I wasn't doing that on purpose. I swear.
Please.
I hate you, Angus. But that's very nice, Rhiannon. I appreciate it.
And I think he's not disabled, but I think his name's Jay Shetty. He was a monk and a life coach now. His way of thinking is amazing too.
Good on you. I love hearing that.
Nice. So you've got yourself a blog, right? So what made you want to start writing down your experiences with disability?
So that actually came from my psychologist. Okay. I've always been a person who loves writing. Primary school for me, English. Give me an English class and a short story, 10 minutes, and I will write 3 pages.
I'm with you. I love it.
Love it. And then the anxiety around last year with the current climate, I was sitting there going, this is doing my head in. Like the voices in my head were getting so loud. And I hadn't experienced that for quite a while. And I was talking to my psychologist about it. She goes, you're a very creative human being. She's like, put pen to paper and just write. She said, I don't care what it is. You can write stories, fiction, fact, whatever, just write. And so I went home and like, I actually like the idea of a blog, and I love sharing my story. And I had done some public speaking in the past. I'm like, I love educating people around MD and the way I go about things and my care and stuff like that. And so within a week, I'd had the name down pat. I'd found web hosting. I Googled everything there was to know about blogging and SEOs and
what's the name of the blog so you can plug it?
Living Abled.
Living Abled.
It's an Instagram account with the same as well.
Living Abled.
Yes.
Pretty close to ListenABLE, which we love.
I know. So unintentional, I swear.
Okay. So you
hang on. Producer Matt, do we have to call the lawyers?
Yeah, the lawyers.
Yeah, no, we're good. Okay, just checking.
We'll let that go through.
Yeah.
Make sure you go for Living Abled, everybody. And so what about you are you religious at all?
Yes, I am.
Now, does your disability come into your religion at all? Do you ever question your faith with disability?
I'd say when I was about 10 or 11, definitely. Because the questions of why was this put on me? Like the whole why me thing really got to me.
That's a big one.
And yeah, it definitely did. But then it wasn't until my spinal surgery that I was given a cross necklace. My grandmother gave it to me, which belonged to my late grandfather, who was the one who passed away after my 8th birthday. And she said, he would wear this, I want to give it to you. And I wear it. I wore it the whole time, like all the time. So yeah, faith has definitely played a big role in my headspace now, 100%. And I mean, everyone has different views on religion and faith. And I always like to say to people, just any higher energy source is good to go, whether it's in yourself or external, whatever.
Interesting you say that people have different ideas on faith, Gus.
I'm an atheist. I'm agnostic, I should say, because I can't disprove that God exists as much as you can prove that he exists. But in the sense, I am an atheist. But I always find faith to be an interesting topic when it comes to religion because of the question of why. Because there is the statement, God created everyone in his own image.
Yeah.
It's like, what? God's not in a wheelchair. So I kind of wonder where people who are religious come into faith and whether they can find strength and power in it. I'm all about finding your best version of yourself. If you find that through God, through a book, through a testament, through whatever, the Quran, fantastic. If it makes you a better person, I have no problem with that because as an atheist, it makes me a better person, believing in myself, like you said. But I just wonder with people who do have a faith and a disability, where it sits with them.
Yeah, and like when your gallbladders pop it off and you're lying in the hospital and you're in strife, are you thinking, this is BS? Like, why is God doing this to me?
Definitely. That even during my scoliosis surgery too, I was sitting there going, why on earth, like, this just keeps getting better and better. Like,
Yeah, you're like,
why,
I'm praying, I'm
why
going to
is this happening?
church. Why is this happening to me? Do you still
Definitely.
ask those questions about yourself?
Not anymore. Not anymore. Because I'm one of those people that I like to have a go-to verse, whether it be the Bible. I had one that wasn't even religious that I would write every single day in year 12 to get me through year 12. And it literally, like I said, it wasn't a Bible verse. But now I do definitely have a Bible verse that I go to and consult. And I believe Nick Vujicic, who was born without limbs, he's got a similar one to me as well, that he likes to sort of repeat to himself when the anxiety starts getting up there and the questions and the thoughts start popping in your head a little bit more.
We'll leave that paragraph to be your own self. And shout outs to the lady who every time I mention religion on this podcast tells me that she thinks it's a disgrace and should stay out of the conversation. Thank you very much, that lady.
Let's invite that message right now.
And here she comes. We want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Rhiannon Anderson. Like we said, ListenABLE is the name of your blog and your Instagram. Before you go, of course, we have a bucket of uncomfortable, a bowl of uncomfortable.
A bucket today.
We've got a bucket
Sorry,
today.
it's normally a
Jeez,
bowl.
wow.
Hang on, Angus.
Bowl.
Oh, jeez.
A bowl of uncomfortable question. This one comes from a person online who would like to remain anonymous. This person has said, "Hi, Rhiannon. I've grown up in a family that has had a funeral business passed down throughout the generations. So therefore, death has been part of my life for a long time. With death being inevitable for everyone, but maybe for you a little bit different, have you thought about what your funeral looks like?"
Oh boy.
That's a bucket today.
That was a bucket, baby.
That is. Holy smokes. Where's the tequila?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've spoken to my mum, who's able-bodied in good health, and she's spoken about the flowers, the music. So she's thought about her own mortality. For you, have you thought about your own?
Definitely. Mortality, definitely. And always staring down the barrel of, life expectancy and things like that. They say now if I get to 50, I'm doing well.
Okay.
So I'll take that
We're
any
here to
day of the
60.
week.
Hey, if I'm anyone 50 plus, you're happy. You're killing it. You'll get there. You're looking fit as. I think you'll smash it.
No,
But it's
back
interesting.
back to the question though.
Yeah.
Have you thought about your funeral? I mean, we want if you're comfortable answering.
Yeah. Definitely 110%. I've thought about it. I'm definitely in agreement with my old man when I say I want the Richmond theme song playing either as I leave the church.
We almost got
and
through
everyone needs to
55
sing
minutes of Richmond, and then there it is. That's always bringing it back. I like it.
And who to sing it?
Sorry, I had to, but yeah, everyone's singing. I can just have visions of people singing in the church the Richmond theme song, and when it gets to Yellow and Black, and I also want to have myself recorded singing that.
Okay.
And going, yeah, guys, like Richmond, do not forget, please.
Wow,
and then as I get lowered into the ground, I've seen a video of someone in Scotland recording himself going, "Hey, let me out of here. Like, it's dark in here."
That.
That's definitely something I'd be into.
Oh, that's loose.
That sounds like a fun celebration of your life.
I like it.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So are we talking like an adorned black and white theme? Sorry, black and yellow theme?
Yellow and black, man.
Dude, not Collingwood.
Not Collingwood,
Yeah, yellow
no.
and black.
Yellow
and black.
Yes.
They're gonna,
110%, my
Wow.
word. Yes.
we have podcast listeners in England and Brazil and the US. They're going to be like, what are these people talking about? What?
AFL.
Google
Australian
it.
rules
YouTube it right now.
YouTube it.
Richmond, exactly right.
Yeah.
Dusty Martin.
Well, thank you very much for the
yeah.
question to the anonymous person, who obviously I can see the name on the screen, but thank you very much for sending through your bowl of uncomfortable and keep them coming through.
Rhiannon, you're a star. How do people get in touch with you? Give us the name of is it through your personal account or, because you even said you do a bit of business speaking, and I'm not pumping you up here. You should do more of it because you've got a great story to tell. How do people get in touch?
So they can get in touch through my Instagram page, ListenABLE blog, all one word, through my Facebook page, ListenABLE, or through my website, listenable.com.au.
Thank you so much for your time, Rhiannon Anderson.